Tama was once a valiant knight who met his end at the hands of demons. However, after his death, he was reincarnated into the body of an S-rank behemoth, a creature capable of destroying entire nations in seconds. But at least that's what his status screen claims. And in reality, he looks like an ordinary cat. Tama is grateful for this second chance at life, but feels conflicted about becoming a monster, especially since he spent his entire human life slaying them. While contemplating his new existence, an E-rank slime slowly inches toward him. Tama can tell the slime is planning to eat him, so he quickly opens his status screen to pick a skill for self-defense. Unlocking the ability to fire rocks from his mouth, he uses it to kill the slime with ease. Relieved but hungry, Tama realizes he hasn't eaten since his reincarnation and decides to try the slime. And to his surprise, it tastes delicious. And even better, eating monsters grants him their skills, and from the slime, he gains the ability to store items. Encouraged by his newfound power, Tama decides to explore the dungeon further to see what other monsters or meals await him. And being an S-rank, none of the dungeon's inhabitants pose a real threat, and he effortlessly slays minotaurs, golems, and snakes, devouring them and absorbing their skills. So life as a cat monster isn't so bad after all, and Tama begins to enjoy his new existence. Meanwhile, at the dungeon's entrance, a well-endowed elf girl arrives, ready to begin her adventuring day. Back with Tama, his exploration leads him to a treasure chest sitting in the middle of a room. Thrilled, he rushes to open it, excited to see a treasure in real life for the first time. And inside he finds a massive gem, but before he can celebrate, he realizes the chest was a trap. And instead of being a mimic, the trap teleports him to a hidden boss room. So now Tama finds himself perched on the back of an earth dragon. And unlike the other monsters he's faced so far, this one is also S-ranked, meaning he won't be able to one-shot it like the rest. The earth dragon then mocks Tama for daring to intrude upon her lair, vowing to end his life. But Tama, literally only an hour old in this new life, refuses to die so easily. So he retaliates with his rock attack, but it's hilariously ineffective against an earth dragon, and the rocks bounce harmlessly off her tough scales, ricocheting into the ceiling and creating a small hole. The dragon counters by slashing at him, and Tama uses his iron body skill to defend himself. But while the skill keeps him alive, the slash still leaves him with severe injuries. The dragon, impressed by his survival, declares him tenacious but still no match for her, so she lunges forward to finish him off. But in a last-ditch effort, Tama activates a newly unlocked flight skill and slashes out her eye with his tail before escaping through the hole in the ceiling. Gravely wounded and losing blood rapidly, Tama desperately tries to make it out of the dungeon to find a safe place to recover. But he's mere steps away from the exit when he collapses from blood loss. As he lies helpless on the ground, he hears something approaching from around the corner. Unable to move, he assumes whatever it is will easily finish him off. But instead of a threat, it's the well-endowed elf girl from earlier. Spotting Tama's near-lifeless body, she rushes over to help him. Tama wakes up hours later, finding himself lying in a soft bed with his wounds bandaged. So he confusedly wonders where he is until the elf girl walks in carrying a bowl of milk. Remembering her face from before he passed out, Tama marvels at her beauty and silently admires those massive, well-done melons. The elf girl is relieved to see Tama awake, commenting on how severe his wounds were. She can't fathom how a tiny kitten like him could have ended up in the middle of such a dangerous dungeon. So Tama quickly realizes that she thinks he's just an ordinary cat rather than an S-rank behemoth. And since he can't talk, there's no way to correct her assumption. But even if he could, why would he want to? After all, this misunderstanding means he gets to sleep on her legendary cushion every damn night. Over the next few weeks, Arya continues to care for Tama until he has fully recovered from his injuries. One day, as Arya heads out for her usual dungeon run, Tama reflects on how grateful he is for everything she's done for him. She not only nursed him back to health, but also gave him food, a warm place to sleep, and unconditional kindness. Determined to repay her, Tama swears to protect her with his life, no matter what. So to ensure her safety, he decides to secretly follow her into the dungeon. He then sneaks aboard the boat before it departs and hides. When they arrive at the dungeon, Tama keeps a close eye on Arya, while staying hidden in the shadows. He worries about her potentially getting into some kind of ridiculous situation, like losing her clothes to a slime or something absurd like that. Determined to be ready for anything, he prepares himself to jump in at the first sign of danger. However, his concerns quickly ease as Aria encounters a group of goblins. She activates her acceleration skill and dispatches them with incredible precision, cutting them down effortlessly. After the fight, she bends down to collect the goblin ears for the reward, and after watching her in action, Tama is genuinely impressed. His experience as a knight allows him to recognize the level of skill and speed in her swordsmanship, and he can't help but admire her ability. As Aria finishes storing the goblin ears, she spots another goblin lurking behind a corner and readies her stance again. She's already met her quota for goblins today, but if this one insists on attacking, she'll deal with it. What she doesn't realize, however, is that this isn't a regular goblin, it's a goblin mage. And before she can react, the goblin launches a massive fireball at her. Completely unprepared for such an attack, Aria finds herself in serious danger. Tama can't stand by and let her get hurt. Yet he knows using any of his overpowered skills would reveal that he's a monster, something he's not ready to explain. And instead he acts quickly, pushing Aria out of harm's way and lunging at the goblin mage. And with a slash of his regular kitty paws, Tama causes the goblin to stumble backward and tumble down the dungeon stairs to its demise. Aria, stunned by the turn of events, can't fathom how or why Tama is in the dungeon, but her gratitude for his intervention is clear. On the boat ride back to town, she lets him curl up on her ample chest, rewarding him with belly rubs, and that shit makes him hooked on it. After returning to town, Aria heads straight to the Adventurers Guild to submit the goblin ears she collected. On her way to the reception desk, she's stopped by Lord Casman, a man she's met before and has been actively trying to avoid. Casman, as usual, tries to convince Aria to join his party, but she politely declines, already well aware of his reputation as a scumbag. But Casman refuses to take no for an answer. As if to prove his sleaziness, he reaches out, aiming for a double dirty cheek grab. But before Casman can make contact, Tama leaps into action, biting his hand and latching on tightly. Casman screams in pain, flailing wildly, but Tama doesn't let go. When Casman finally shakes Tama off, the cat lands on his face, clawing him up before jumping back to Aria's chest. Casman, now enraged and humiliated, reaches for his sword, intent on attacking Tama. But before he can swing, the Guildmaster Arnold Schwarzenegger, known as Anna, grabs Casman's sword mid-draw and warns him that the guild has strict rules against drawing weapons for petty reasons like fighting a cat. So she warns him that there will be serious consequences if he proceeds. Realizing he's no match for Arnold's authority, Casman reluctantly backs down and storms out of the guild. Aria then thanks Arnold for stepping in, but he says it's nothing and praises Tama for defending her so fiercely. Aria then heads to the reception desk, where Arnold documents the goblin ears, officially completing her quest. Afterwards, Aria sits at a table to relax and spend time with Tama, and things seem wholesome as she tickles his stomach, but the mood and the looks in her eyes take a turn when her fingers drift a little too low, grazing his more private areas. And the pervert elf looks way too damn excited about that shit. Later, Aria gets ready to take a bath and insists on bringing Tama along. Still clinging to his honor as a former knight, Tama refuses to enter a women's bath. But Aria has other plans, and despite his protests, Tama ends up in the bath with her. While they soak, Aria begins to talk about her dreams. She tells Tama about how her village was nearly destroyed by demons years ago, but the legendary sword Saint Alicia appeared and saved everyone. And since then, Aria has dedicated herself to becoming as strong and heroic as Alicia. The next day, Aria heads to the guild with Tama, and as they walk through town, Tama notices how well-liked Aria is by everyone. The townsfolk greet her warmly, showing how much they admire her. When they arrive at the guild, Aria cheerfully greets Arnold at the reception desk. However, Arnold's face turns serious as he warns her that today isn't a good day to be here and advises her to leave quickly. Unfortunately, before Aria can take his advice, Casman struts into the guild with an air of smugness. He loudly announces that after being injured by her cat, he reported the incident to the Baron, and as a result, he was issued a special order declaring that Aria's pet cat must be put down. Aria is horrified, even though she hasn't had Tama for long. He's already incredibly precious to her, and she can't bear the thought of losing him. So she falls to her knees, pleading with Casman to show mercy. Kasmin, reveling in her desperation, proposes a duel. If Aria wins, Tama's life will be spared, but if Kasmin wins, Aria must agree to marry him. The terms are grossly unfair. Not only is Kasmin a higher rank than Aria, but the stakes are heavily skewed in his favor. Yet with no other options to save Tama, Aria reluctantly agrees. The duel begins, and he immediately kicks Aria in the side, sending her sprawling. As she recovers, he sarcastically compliments her speed, taunting that it won't be enough to defeat him. Aria then switches tactics, throwing a flurry of daggers at Kasmin. But his knife-proof cape renders the attack useless, and he easily deflects them. Kasmin then closes the distance and presses forward, relentlessly striking with his sword. Aria struggles to defend herself, but is eventually disarmed, leaving her vulnerable and at his mercy. With her weapon gone, all hope seems lost for Aria. Tama watches the scene unfold, his mind racing. If he does nothing, Aria will be forced to marry Kasmin. But if he steps in and uses his skills, everyone will realize he's a monster. Kasmin then raises his sword, ready to deliver the final blow and force Aria to surrender. But just as he swings, Tama makes his decision to protect her and leaps in front of the blade, activating his iron body skill to block it. The force of the skill shatters the sword, leaving Kasmin stunned. Tama then unleashes a powerful howl skill, sending Kasmin flying into a cluster of nearby trees. And by pure coincidence, the broken sword flies in the same direction, aiming straight for Kasmin's balls. And this result ensures Kasmin's day goes from bad to absolutely miserable. The crowd erupts into murmurs, stunned by what they've just witnessed. Everyone knows they saw the cat use skills, something no ordinary pet could do. Tama had anticipated this moment, knowing his actions would reveal his secret. So he's certain it's only a matter of time before the crowd realizes he's a monster, and when they do, they'll likely come for him. But despite this, Tama feels no regret, because his only concern was protecting Aria, and in that he succeeded. Aria and Arnold then approach Tama cautiously, both clearly amazed. They begin discussing what Tama could be, but instead of concluding he's a monster, they convince themselves he must be an elemental cat, a rare and magical creature. Tama, stunned by their misunderstanding, can hardly believe his luck. Arnold then declares Aria the winner of the duel, and with the matter settled, everything returns to normal, or as normal as life can be for an overpowered cat, with the most legendary and comfortable cushion in the world. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.